You're listening to Your Rivers Are Wrong, the podcast. My name is Merle. I'm here with my good friend Dante, and we're here to build worlds and tell their stories. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whenever you may be, welcome back to the Your Rivers Are Wrong podcast. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Dante.
And I am the other one, and my name is Merle.
And we're here as we are every week to talk about the arts and aesthetics of world building and the stories that come of it. This is our 10th episode. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. That's like double digits now. We're in double digits.
Yeah, we're in double digits. We've officially, well, not officially, we've almost reached season numbers. What are season numbers? 13-ish? Right? Isn't that crazy?
Sure, yeah. Whoa, that's wonderful. And that also means that we're already recording for like 2.5 months, like consistently. That's solid.
Yeah.
That's really good.
We haven't missed a single week since we started, which is awesome, right?
Accountability. Yeah. Honestly, it works. I'll recommend it to anyone.
I mean, it's so much easier when there's somebody else on the other end. I guess it's just like exercising, where it's just like, as long as somebody is waiting for you to like do it, then you feel more motivation to get through. Yeah. How do seasons work in podcasts? Is that like a...
I'm not sure. I don't think there's like a solid number. Like, doesn't just anyone do whatever they feel like? Isn't that a thing? I mean, like in animation, it's like strict, right? Where you have like, oh, everything needs to be like 24 minutes or something. Isn't that a thing? Like a sort of industry standard. I don't know if that's a thing in podcasting.
Yeah, we don't really have a strict time limit.
But we're not doing it, if anything.
Yeah, but I mean, look at us. This is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that we're doing a podcast every week. This is something else.
It's so nice, though. And it gets in the system now. Do you have that too? Like exactly the accountability thing, but also the fact that we're doing it every week. At first I thought like, oh, dang, that's like a weekly time commitment that we're deciding now. But it works well because it is so repetitive. Yeah, that sounds negative, but like in the best way possible.
Yeah. Kind of get into the rhythm of it.
Yeah, because if it was like 2 weeks or every month, every time it would be like, oh, we have to do this thing now. And now it's really casual and sort of free, which is lovely.
Yeah. I remember I don't know about you, but I was stressing so much about the first episode. Like, what are we going to do? What are our topics? How scripted are we going to be? Like, oh, there's going to be specific times, and then every week we're going to plan out exactly what we're going to talk about. It's going to be perfect. Right?
I mean, the first one's always scary. Like, that's very legitimized, Yeah. But hey, we did it. We passed the first one. And now we're in the 10th one. That's amazing.
Yeah, we're cruising. We're cruising.
We are cruising.
How's your week been? How's anything happen exciting? Anything new? And I don't know.
Well, I've binge watched a lot of series. I don't know why.
Oh, for real?
But I've been in the moment. I think this morning I finished season 3 of Carmen Sandiego. I've watched this like 2 times already. Like not the entire season, but the first season. And every time I keep forgetting that they add new seasons, then I forget the entire like plot of season 1. And I'm like, but it was really good. I think I should just rewatch it. I know like season 1 out of my head now. Is that how you say it? Like from the top of my head. And then now I'm finally like coming to the last seasons, which is pretty good. But yeah.
Nice. That's the animated series, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Have you done anything crazy? Except for exercising. Talking about exercising, by the way. Tell us about your great achievement, Dante.
Yeah, my great achievement.
The people need to know.
So my friend pulled me out of my bunker that is just my room and brought me to the gym for the first time in at least over 2 years. I am not a working out kind of guy. So like it's been off and on for like the past decade, me trying to like, get fit and all that.
Sure.
But I was put through like a rigorous 2-hour exercise regimen, and they're no stranger to working out. But for me, my body was like screaming like, oh, how could you do this to us?
Such betrayal.
We had a deal. How could you hurt me like this?
Oh, buddy.
I remember when I told my friend when we got to abs, my body just full on gave out. Like, nope, not doing this. Can't do this. It's like, oh, come on, please, just a couple of reps. It was like a full on conversation. And of course, today I feel like a rag doll, a puppet with no strings. So right now I'm sitting entirely still, so I don't
have pain everywhere.
I just don't flinch as we're talking. But I'm sure it gets better throughout the day. So yeah.
Are you planning on doing like a regular thing now, or was this just like a one sort of dare thing and then it actually happened?
Probably not as intense as yesterday was.
Fair.
But I do want to get into at least once a week, try to get something going, and then kind of build up into a more stable thing.
That's pretty good.
I think that 1 week, that 1 week where I just ate expired chocolate really just kind of woke me up to how bad it's been.
I love that we like talked about this in a previous episode. Like, I know this week.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, we're giving life updates for the people.
Yeah, I feel like I'm like super zoned into your timeline of like fitness now. I feel like for some reason like we keep breaking it up. I don't know how it happens, but
listen, by the end of this year, we're going to be talking about, I'm just running a couple of marathons over the weekend.
Okay,
right? I just broke my what do they call it? Powerlifting record. The whole 9.
Okay, just manifesting it right now. Yeah, calling it now.
We gotta dream big.
Okay, sure. Yep, that's true.
Just like we said, accountability. We gotta. Our fans are hearing it right now.
Shit, it's true. It's out in the ether now. Yeah.
We got to attempt to reach for something. I think that's the goal.
That's fair.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Good start to the podcast.
Yeah.
If anybody was unaware, this is in fact a world building / storytelling podcast.
Yeah.
We don't just do health and fitness tips. You wouldn't come here for health and fitness tips. I cannot give it to you. I don't have that. But we do have a topic each. We both bring a topic at the top of the podcast, and we bring it to each other unprompted, and we see what conversations come of it. I believe, Merle, you're starting us off today.
Yes, that is true. And I believe today's episode is going to be a little bit of a deep dive. Can I call it that? I think so.
Sure.
Because I remember when we did last episode, after we stopped recording, where we talked about romance and sort of real life input / output from your fantasy story. We touched on so many interesting things, right? And we, like, after we stopped recording, we just kept talking and we're like, wow, we chose the biggest topics. And we have like 20 minutes each to discuss them, and that's it. So I thought maybe it's nice to just zoom in a little bit today, at least for my topic, and maybe have something similar.
Yeah, something along the lines.
On like a part of that I found interesting, and a nice lead up to that, I would say, as maybe a small introduction to this, is a project I did a while back on Art Academy, where we had to do like a big sort of, how do you say that? Like encyclopedia style book design. So we had to find a data set, so a big amount of texts or, information or something to design, basically, and then make like a very big book project out of it. And what I chose then, without knowing that I would benefit so much from it as we were doing this, is a series of rants, like sort of written blog posts / like archived pieces of writing from Lim Yael, I think is how you say it. It's Limyael.
Sure.
Who is an anonymously publishing author online. I think it started like around 2002 or something, or 2003.
Okay, cool.
And then she just kept going for so long. Like she had this, at some point, like I had to sort of scrape the internet a little bit for it, because there's all this sort of shady archives of all her posts and nothing is completely like complete. So I had to like pull multiple sources. Like the whole sort of data was like a whole different project without even doing the book design. But it was super fun. And basically what she wrote is a whole bunch of rants basically about storytelling and about fantasy and about teen fiction and stuff like that. So she has so many entries on so many interesting topics, so I definitely recommend you check her stuff out anyway. I think it's on TV Tropes or something. You can find the archives online. And one of them talked about what we talked about last time, which is female protagonists or female characters in general. So it's maybe nice to have like a little bit of an image of what this rant is. These are not super long, right? So this is like, I don't know, maybe 1.5 page of words, and she usually just sort of lists a bunch of stuff that she finds stupid or that she finds important, depending on the topic, when writing fantasy, or when writing side characters, or when writing female protagonists. So this is the entry from May 27, 2003. I love that I know like when this anonymous person wrote this. It feels like such a sort of treasure chest when you read all these. But I just want to take you through a little bit of her bullet points about female protagonists.
Okay.
And she just describes a bunch of things that she finds important when writing female protagonists who do not suck, which is the title of this rant.
Mm-hmm.
And she starts with a bunch of things about appearance. So she says, don't over-describe someone's appearance, which is basically like, if you say long, dark, silky, wavy hair, you're like, okay, we get it.
Mm-hmm.
She also says, don't describe appearance all at once. So don't have one entire paragraph about literally every characteristic about her face.
Oh.
Because it's not relevant or not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
She also says, don't let them look in mirrors and pools of water and gaze upon their appearance so that you can describe it. Don't do that. Give them flaws like every good character. She comes back in a lot of her rants about flaws. So this is, I mean, in general, like we talked about flaws before. This is like very useful for all character design ever,
yeah.
but also for female protagonists. She says, give them real problems. Give them not the problems that you think females have, like love or like, I don't know, relationship struggles or the struggles of being beautiful. She says, give them no dark past if you can. Like, mystery can be hot, but there's way more interesting ways to do it because that's been done.
Fair.
I found this one a really good one. Number 7, don't let the female protagonist cause very strong reactions in your other characters, despite who the other characters are. So if everywhere she goes, you know, she leaves everyone breathless, or she leaves everyone wondering who this person is, you know, there's a sort of air of, oh, she's a female, or oh, she's the handsome one in the corner or something. I'm filling in, of course, but yeah, I could really see this one being relevant. I love this one, which is give her humor. Give her the ability to laugh. And I started to think about this and I was like, oh, dang, this is not like, I guess a lot of hot people don't laugh a lot. I feel like there are a lot of times when people are hot, they're like serious and, you know, their eyes are like squeezy. You know what I mean?
Oh, no.
Or how do you say that? Like narrowed, squinting. Yeah. Also, she says, make her uncertain of things. Make her lose things at times. Like, don't make her the perfect, I fix everything, I'm always ahead of the game person.
Mm-hmm.
Let her properly interact with others. This, I think, comes back a little bit in the, like, don't let her cause too strong reactions. Like, make her also, you know, someone to be able to just talk to, like, have a conversation with over lunch. I don't know.
Yeah, like a human being. Yeah.
Yeah, like an actual human being. Exactly. And then she has 2 more, which is don't identify too close with the heroine you're writing. So don't make her too much of what you would want her to be. Like, criticism of your character is not criticism of you. Like, you don't have to make her to like fix all of your problems. And then the last one she's saying is consider having your heroine actually fail in romantic relationships, because that's the sort of main point for which unfortunately a lot of female characters are around in the sort of love realm of plot and character building, right? So what if she's not? Like, what's left behind if she actually fails in a relationship? Like, what's left of the character then? And those are a bunch of things that she wrote, and I found them really interesting. And I'm just curious, maybe to start off the conversation a little bit more about what we think might work well for female characters.
Yeah.
So did any one of these like stand out to you, or did you love or hate or relate to certain things?
Yeah, a lot of them.
That's good.
There were, I felt like you could pick apart any like 2 or 3 of these and then just talk about it on a spree. I almost felt the need to like interject during certain parts, but I kind of wanted to hear the whole list. Oh, there's so much to tackle. Let me just give me a second and figure.
There's a lot to dissect here.
Yeah,
right?
of course. So 2 things I think came to mind first and foremost. Did you have somebody in mind when you were reading these? Like, did somebody? There was a character that immediately came to mind more than anybody else. That,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Who was it?
Definitely. What is it? Her name? Rey from Star Wars, the Star Wars 3rd trilogy.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar.
Yeah, a lot of the gripes. The main character of the 3rd Star Wars trilogy, the successor to the. I don't know if it's a spoiler or not. The successor to a bunch of the storylines from before. Mm-hmm. She was met with a lot of criticisms for being as they call it, a Mary Sue, somebody who is just generically powerful and talented and good at everything.
And also gorgeous.
Yeah, and also like flawless, probably. Right?
Sure.
So when reading through these, like, oh, don't give them flaws, avoid a dark past, don't let people have strong reactions to her. A lot of the community complaints about her was that like she could just do whatever she wanted, and it was like she eventually just picked it up, no problem. Which is just a generic Mary Sue problem, but also just a generic main character problem. Like, it's not necessarily tied to the fact that she's a female protagonist. It's just
that's true.
Bad writing in that it's someone who is naturally talented and good at everything to the point to drive the plot forward. And something that to the second point, something that we kind of pick up on, or something I've noticed in the D&D community, which is majority male, you get the question that comes up every now and then, like, oh, how do I play a female character, right? That's a question that comes up.
Oh, yeah,
and then people are like you'd play a normal human being. Like, you kind of learn,
because
like,
they are.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of learn that like 95% of the things you do in character are unisex, right? Like the way you meet problems, the way you encounter and talk to people, like it doesn't dramatically change depending on the gender of the character you're playing. But sometimes writers feel the need to make the gender of the character right at the forefront, even if the plot doesn't demand it, you know? So when look at these points, it's just like just really obvious, not obvious, but it's really clear, good character points,
logical things,
yeah, that people kind of misconstrue that they have to change specific because the character is a girl, which is a bit frustrating, I think.
So just for my reference real quick, the character you just mentioned from Star Wars, is she in a very powerful position, or what's kind of her role in the story?
So gosh, I'm now trying to remember the Star Wars trilogy. I did not pay attention to many movies. So one of her big things is that she is one of the last Jedi. She's one of the few people who can still tap into the Force, and and has a very distinct relation to Kylo Ren, who is the main antagonist, descendant or son of the previous heroes of the story, who has since turned to the dark side. So she, as a contrast, kind of has to be the good Jedi to counteract him. She has like a supporting cast of Finn and Poe Dameron. Yes, I'm getting the names. Okay, cool. And they're kind of like
I wouldn't know if you got them wrong. Like
they're kind of the plucky trio.
Okay, good.
And as they kind of match the original crew. Like they're just kind of the trio that the story centers around. But as the story kind of progresses, it kind of feels like the other two characters are phased out a little bit. Then their storyline sidelined for the progression of her, who happens to be revealed in the third movie, a descendant of one of the bad guys from the first trilogy. And it felt like it was kind of out of nowhere. So it's like the good guy is a descendant of evil, the evil one is a descendant of good, and like their intrinsic connection and bond is kind of what drives the story to a dramatic climax, which is the redemptive arc of the villain, which was actually played pretty darn well by Adam Driver. And I really enjoyed that. But her arc just seemed like she was fulfilling prophecy. She had to be this good. She wanted to be this good, and she became that good. Like it feels like there was not enough time given to her to just be human and like be someone that doesn't have to achieve everything at once. Or it felt like she was kind of the catalyst to moving the story forward, and her character suffered because of it. Especially in the last movie, they were kind of just going through a checklist of things that they had to do to satisfy the fan base. And because of that, they didn't give the characters room to breathe and like talk to each other and come to realistic conclusions and conversations.
I think that's very logical also that you're saying that, because as I was reading this entry, like these bullet points, I also realized that a lot of the positively phrased ones were really about sort of things that you would do just casually, like flaws and real problems and humor and interaction with others, I could envision these more in sort of downtime activities, or just exactly what you're saying, like scenes where the characters can breathe or have just a moment of waiting maybe for something, or I don't know, they're just finished a mission and they're cooling off somewhere. I don't know. I guess it makes a lot of sense if her role is to be so much the catalyst of the story that she doesn't have those moments at all, which is basically all plot and serious and being hot and amazing at fighting. And a lot of these points, like humor or flaws or real casual problems or blah, 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 those are not always achieved if you don't have time to, case them out or interact with people casually.
Yeah, that's fair. So sometimes when you're reading something, it's a lot more apparent in like, amateur works and fan fiction and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But you can kind of tell when an author is trying to use the character as a plot point or as a medium of sympathy or empathy, I guess.
Oh, right.
I don't know the perfect way to say this, but basically, like the first couple points of your list were very poignant towards that. Like, don't over describe them. Don't make them like look in mirrors. don't overload the person with details about their physical description, because when you start painting that too early, or you start making that at the forefront of their introduction or their description, you start kind of leading the character or leading the reader to perceive them as sort of an idealized thing, like like you're describing it like
it's
like
the first thing that we remember about them.
Yeah. And if if you kind of let their actions be the things that fill out their initial introduction, like the words they say, the things they do, and not necessarily focus on the physical description, because at the end of the day, that's not really that important unless it's something like striking that everybody notices, which is another point. Like, don't let everybody have strong reactions to her.
Yeah.
Then you can kind of feel like this is a well-rounded character that doesn't rely too much on how they look or how they're perceived to be, and rather take a more introspective look at who they truly are and can they be empathized with, which is what makes a good character a good protagonist,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Also, as you were saying that, I also wondered, like, what characters do I remember for their appearance? And there are not a lot of them. Like, I was thinking, okay, maybe Katniss. That was like a really, like, the sort of appearance of each person in a district was, she didn't stray from that or something. She was just like every other person in the district, but because eventually her look became such a political thing, it became a thing. But aside from that, like, I don't think I remember a lot of characters that have like super cool visuals, because I don't remember the characters I love most for those traits.
Exactly.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
I do find that this is something that you find pretty handily in like romantically themed novels. Like when you kind of introduce a character, you kind of do the top-down approach where you describe them, like somebody who like just woke up out of bed, to a little bit messy, scruffy. You have the whole kind of, you got to get like the visual aesthetic of them kind of settled before you start talking about them, which is fair, because when you meet people, like the first thing you see is their physical appearance. And if it's like romantically charged in terms of the novel's direction, then that's important. That's it's realistic to care about those things. But when it's like an adventure, right? When it's like an action thriller, and the first paragraph,
when you sleep on the side of the road,
exactly. When you're like traveling through the movies are so guilty of like everybody having perfect makeup and perfect hair the whole way through. Like Game of Thrones, as gritty as it is, everybody always looks beautiful. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Only cool scars. Yeah.
Yeah, only cool scars. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
If they're ever marked up, it's only in really aesthetic places, like diagonally across the chest or right over the eye.
Yeah, like through the eyebrow. Yeah.
Got a little cut.
So aesthetic. I mean, I love them, don't get me wrong.
Of course,
but it's not like any cool sort of character building, except like aesthetically.
I mean, as a little tangent, like Tyrion from Game of Thrones, which is the dwarf character. In the books, he's supposed to be very difficult to look at. He's supposed to be a little bit gruesome. But of course, really? Okay. In real life, the actor is like a very handsome person. So they did not like totally gnarl up his face to the point that he's hard to see, because he became a very important focal point in the story, and the directors were like, well, we kind of got to look at him a lot, so let's beautify him just a little bit.
Yeah
But
then that's the point, right? Like, why do we feel the need to do that? Well, I guess because it sells to have people be beautiful in stories.
That's all it is.
But that's very twisted in a way. Like, that's really sad, because that is sort of dripping through. And so, like, not that beautiful people are, that I hate them. Of course not. You can be beautiful, whatever you want. But the fact that that sort of idea of something being beautiful in order for it to sell is really such a shame. I don't know. I feel like it drips into so many things. Like, if I'm thinking back on my entire studies, basically, is about that. Graphic design is all about aside from the sort of, the noble ways that we say, oh, well, communication is important. And it is, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But on the end of the day, like 80% of all the marketing companies are literally what that is, marketing. They just beautify to be able to sell things.
Yeah.
It's sort of the whole corner of that sort of graphic design world is about that. It's so commercial. I mean, that's of course about, logos and stuff. But in general, in books, that's really sort of also seeping through. Even though in books you literally don't have a visual, it's just text. So why do we feel the need to then still do that in books?
Yeah, books don't really have an excuse.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
they really don't. Like, make ugly characters, Jesus. Yeah, or make characters that don't have an appearance. Just let me imagine what I want the hair color to be. You know?
Listen, you talk about like this all taps into marketability, right? I could name like 50 artists that you can pick up from like YouTube or like musical people who are just incredibly talented. Mm-hmm. And the bottom line between whether they become really big or they just kind of hang along by a thin line is their marketability, like how beautiful they are. Can they be put on a billboard? Sure. Can they be pitched and sold? Will their image alone be able to sell records? That's all that's all it comes down to at the very, very top. And all these incredible talented people like will never like be on stage at Broadway or a feature in a music video or make it to MTV because they can't be sold. And it's a bummer,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it is interesting because as I'm saying this, I also realize that if I see someone who has a sort of strange beauty to them or that I find sort of physically attractive, of course it interests me, or I'm keeping that person in mind, or I'm wondering who they are, I guess, So there is a sort of, I don't know, I also understand why it works that way. So I don't want to be like too rough about it because I also do this in my brain when I see someone who's, for me at least, very handsome or, interesting looking. I remember them more than someone who doesn't trigger that for me, I guess. It does make sense that it happens, but I think it's really hard to sort of get away from it without immediately being unmarketable. It's such a sort of hard, I don't know, there's really not a lot of gray in there because it really is true. Like the more beautiful something is, the better it sells. It's hard to find examples of things that are not that only in media that I guess are not visual. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter. This is the exact thing that they talked about in Critical Role. Like in the interview, I think on Between the Sheets with Sam Riegel, where he said like, I went into voice acting because, the normal acting, I was always the 8th person in the room that looked just like me, but the worst kind, and then they never picked me. That's literally the whole voice acting business where people feel much freer in their work because they don't feel the pressure of being beautiful also while doing their work. Yes. That's really intense. Like I think specifically in sort of Hollywood and the sort of center of filmmaking and, visual arts. Yeah. I don't know. I find that very intense. I don't have a solution, but it bothers me a lot though.
Yeah, there's a good amount of like YouTubers and actors who kind of realize somewhere in the middle of their career that they have the talent, they have the capabilities, and like they're just as good as a lot of people on the top, but they have to work on their appearance if they want to kind of be noticed and be picked up. So there's kind of a natural transition into like caring more about your skin and your hair and your clothing. So they kind of like transform to meet a certain standard of beauty that the rest of the world can digest. So they can kind of get past the looks and start paying attention to the content.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like there's a YouTube, we're kind of pulling away from the topic, but I do want to kind of say this.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a YouTuber called Disguised Toast who is incredibly famous in the gaming community as kind of like a connoisseur of different games and all that sort. But there was a point when him and his 3 friends kind of pioneered a very famous game at this point called Among Us. And they were all asked to be on the talk show Jimmy Kimmel, or is it Jimmy Fallon? One of the two. But
one of the Jimmys.
Yeah, one of the Jimmys. But Disguised Toast in particular was snubbed. Of the 4, even though they were all equally famous in this field, the other 3 people made it to the show. And part of that is because of their perceived beauty. He very much believed that it was because of how he looked and how what he looked like to the audience that he was not picked to be on live television. So since then, he's been making like active attempts to kind of fix his style, change his hair, be more like visually appealing, because it really is like an unconscious thing to just gravitate towards more beautiful people. And that's not really something we can control. It's just something that we have to be mindful of when taking in content,
Yeah, and also that's something that we should be aware of, that it's workshopped a lot of the times, at least.
Yeah, of course.
Like people have worked on the beautification of something or the marketability of something. I don't know. I find it hard to shake the fact, like, I don't have a solution to this. I'm just sort of thinking out loud at this point.
No, we don't need to have a solution.
No, but I feel like I want to have one, Like, I feel very sad about the fact that he didn't get the show on live television. You know what I mean? That's so sad. That's very unfair. Yeah. Because of his looks, that's so rude. I still get why it happens.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I get a very sad feeling from the fact that this is happening. Like, I wish it wasn't this way. But then still, on the other hand, like, I don't know how to fix it, or if there is a fix for it, or if it's, it feels unfair or something.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint why it frustrates me, because I also very much understand why the world works that way.
Yeah. I don't think it's in our capability to fix in terms of, like, as a societal community. I think physical attraction is something unconscious, or something that has been shaped by the standards of society in general. We've kind of been told what looks good, and we kind of have a natural instinct towards what we're drawn to. And kind of the combination of that has led towards the public perception of beauty. But it's okay to be mindful of it, to not spit vitriol at people who are not conventionally attractive, to kind of support people who thrive in audio scenarios like voice acting and all that, to kind of lift them up in these platforms, and not necessarily care about what they look like publicly. Like, there are very talented voice actors, like incredibly talented voice actors, and they're not all like super beautiful like the people on Critical Role, there's plenty of very, very talented people, and all they need is a platform, people who support them, and that's the best we can do.
Yeah, that's very fair. I think that the first thing you mentioned, also the fact that it's sort of relating somebody's, face or whatever, somebody's appearance to the industry standard. Maybe that's the part about it that bothers me. Like, as we've seen in this sort of fashion industry quite recently, I guess there's been a lot more diversity going on there.
Yes.
It used to be, white young girls, super thin, super tall, and recently we're starting, which I love, by the way, we're starting to see, also because it's more of a topic recently than it was in the past, we're starting to see Afro-American models, or, I don't know, African models, or Asian models, or male models, or old people in campaigns. People with skin problems. I think there's a really famous model now that has, what's the word? Like vertiligo? Yeah, like the one where her skin is a bit stained and stuff. Like, she got super famous at some point because she was so proud of it, and she was really thriving off this movement also a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. And now I noticed, like, for instance, in the past, a lot of people were ashamed of freckles, for instance. And now a lot of models have very fancy freckles, or they have a very interesting skin look to them because there's more color and more diversity to it. So now people take tattoos of freckles. That's a thing now.
Wait, take tattoos? What does that mean?
Oh, maybe you haven't seen them. Like, there's tattoos that you can take for, like,
freckle
getting
tattoos
freckles on your face. Yeah, it's really crazy, and it can go wrong also a lot. So you don't want to look this up because that's awful. But
okay,
this is a thing now that people buy. That people, want to spend money on freckle tattoos, like permanent freckles, because they don't have them. It's crazy. And because the industry standard, because the big names like Vogue and, I don't know, Dolce & Gabbana, or, I don't know, fashion, but, the big names.
Yes, sure.
Because they have diverse models now, the scope of what people are seeing is broadened. So also the scope of what we think is beauty is broadened. It really, the other way is also very much possible. So if we keep it up to only let the 3 best, most traditionally good-looking guys or YouTubers onto the Jimmy something show, we keep doing that. We keep seeing the beauty that we already know, and then, how do you say that? Like, strengthening that idea in our heads. And if we don't do that, if we let other people in that light and have that light, then we know that other people exist, and they are also very talented and cool. And if we never give people the opening or change that view up on the end of the line, the image of beauty will never change.
Of course.
I think that's what bothers me more about it, that it's sort of really a top-down thing, and that the people who should understand this more and should be aware of it are not doing it yet. Not always.
Yeah.
Like in the fashion, for instance, that is finally opening up more now. Yeah, but it's a super complicated thing.
Yeah, I think...
And it takes a while.
It certainly does take a while, yeah. like just the movement to normalize diversity is just a huge. It's a big deal. It's a big deal, and
it's hard.
It definitely happens like in the movie theaters, like picking people of color for leads. People who aren't traditionally like
for sure
beautiful and Caucasian, and just taking just the act of attempting it and trying it and giving it a platform to thrive. Like not every person of color has to be a home run, just like not every white led movie has to be is stellar. Like just the opportunity,
and is not also
just the opportunity to be good, be bad, and to just expose people and be like, oh, this movie has an Asian lead.
Exposure is
like that's not a big deal. Like why? Like it's not. Doesn't even have to be a conversation. To the point, the goal is to normalize it and allow it.
Ideally,
to be
it shouldn't.
Standard. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
And I guess that I feel like that's a natural point to talk about when talking about this very small topic, I guess, of or very very not narrow but like specific topic of female protagonists. Like
oh yeah,
don't box them in into
there.
Don't box them in into what they have to be, or like what female characters have to be in literature. Like there's the public perception,
and what we know them to be. Because that's really a different thing. That's not always similar to what it actually is or could be.
Of course. Letting them just be real people.
It's true.
Good talk. I gotta read more from this person.
It's really nice. I can send you a bunch of.
Yeah, please.
I could send you my book, but I just have it. I have one copy of it, and it's in my home.
And it would take 3 weeks to mail, so it's totally fine.
Yeah, and then I would not have my own anymore. Oh well.
It would be the slowest book club. Where
whoa, slow book clubbing. I like this idea.
Just send a book. Takes 3 weeks to get there. I read it. Takes 3 weeks to send it
Months
back.
later.
Holy.
Yeah. Yep. I like this.
Yeah.
God, should we change topics? I've been I've been taking up all the time here.
No, you're good. You're good. Let us continue on. It's an important topic and a big topic. But yeah, we've been talking for a bit. Okay, sure. Listen, I'm editing this.
Yeah, but what did you bring?
It doesn't matter how long this episode is because I'm the one editing it. So my topic is going to tap into the fact that our conversation went a little bit long. We kind of had like a little after hours conversation after the podcast closed last week. So today's topic is going to be a little different. I think for today, I just want to dive back in time for a moment. As our good friend Nick told us yesterday, our table has been playing D&D together for 3 years now. That's wild.
That's crazy, by the way.
That's wild.
What the hell? I did not realize that was already 3 years.
Yeah. So
2 years I can get behind, but 3 is crazy.
I mean, these past few years have been a blur. So
yeah.
So for context for people listening, Marla and I met through a one shot that I ran on an online D&D platform, Roll20. And Nick was also in that game. And from that, we enjoyed playing so much that Nick said, hey, I want to start a campaign and you guys are welcome to join. So Nick is our DM and we've been playing in their campaign since then. And after 3 years, we're officially on our second campaign. We've played all the way to level 20.
Yeah. And crazy in its own right.
And today, right now, we're recording our 10th episode for world building and storytelling. So there's a lot of great milestones that are happening like literally this week. So
it's pretty bizarre.
Yeah, it's wild. Here's my topic. D&D has very much been a major avenue for us as a creative outlet, an inspiration for world building, and a fantastic medium for telling stories collaboratively. So directed at you, but we'll kind of brainstorm on this.
Sure.
How has D&D changed for you since you first got into the hobby? And what experiences have you had that have surprised you and or are your favorites?
Ooh, damn, that's a big question.
It's a little bit of trip down memory lane, I suppose.
It is a trip down memory lane. Dang. Interesting. I have to say, for me, it's been about role play first. For me, that's the most wonderful part about it. I like a lot of aspects of D&D in general, like the interactiveness, the fact that you can build and play for a long time your own design, basically your own character, but also the interaction with, basically actors on a round table is kind of the feeling. That's what I love most about it. So for me, those moments are really striking that are very much in that realm. I remember, should we also talk about what the campaign, is that relevant? Or characters more?
Yeah, you could talk about that. I don't think we brought it up, so.
I don't think so. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Like super, super short summary of what my character was for the first campaign, because that one was the one that's been running for forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we started a new one now, but yeah, that one was already like 2 years or like 1 and a lot of months.
Our first campaign was almost exactly 2 years long.
Was it 2 years?
Yep.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, that's cool. So the character I played for that in that campaign was Bryn. She was kind of a little bit broody, more on the quiet type. She was a rogue, so she was stealthy and sneaky. She did have a dark past.
Yeah, I was
that's
gonna say.
what you do when you first make a D&D character. I'm not good on this list, I have to say.
I was gonna
say,
quick look at the list.
Now.
Don't start with her appearance, don't dwell too long.
Yep. Nope. Yep. That's... Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I remember she would basically not share a lot if it wasn't specifically asked.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, I remember this was the first moment that I got super fucking hyped about. Like after we finished playing and, we're playing online. So it was just turn off Discord and then you're just alone in your room. I had to like do a little dance because I was like, oh, fuck yeah, this is amazing. And that was like one of the first moments that I had that. It was really amazing. And it was like in the middle of the night because we play when we play, it's evening for me. So we usually end at midnight or a bit later. That I think then it was even a bit later, which I found really funny afterward. But I think it was a moment, I don't even recall exactly what it was anymore, but I think we were sitting in a bar, all of our characters, including Bryn. And then at some point there was a sort of truth or dare thing going on, or there was a sort of question downtime thing going on. And somebody asked, what's your biggest regret or something? It was a sort of drinking game or something. I don't even know what the timeline was, but I think we weren't together for that long because this was the first moment that I really remember that stuck with me. And then that was a moment where Bryn would have a very good conversation and she would dive back into her past and be like, okay, I regret falling in love with my previous partner because he's dead now. And that was sort of at the same time, a big reveal and a very big moment for Bryn because she opened up and she never does that unless, she has to. And this was, of course, quite a direct question, so it made sense to do it. But I was scared out of my mind to do that because I prefer thinking about stuff before doing it, just as a person. It's hard to be like super in the moment at times. But this was a moment where that worked out super well, And it really also felt like, oh, we're getting into serious roleplay now or serious business with these characters because Bryn sort of touched upon this. So it felt like as a sort of instigator and a big character moment and a big moment for me because I was like, oh, I actually nailed this roleplay this time. And I'm not always... I'm not always good at it, or I struggle with it sometimes to do it live, So I think that was the first moment where I really was like, fuck, man, D&D is so fucking beautiful. I should never stop with doing this ever.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about it, about this, the campaign we're in right now, but there is definitely a moment in D&D where you and your character just click. It's like, there's a period where you're trying out different things, maybe trying out a new voice or being a little reckless or playing around or learning your spells or your features and all that and all the mechanics of it. But with a great table like we have, there is eventually a point where your character is pushed and you have to make that conscious decision to kind of react like a human being and like bring life to a character that's all numbers and letters,
Yeah.
And once that moment happens,
that's well put. Yeah.
And everybody kind of locks into that and plays into that at the same time. And it feels like the scenario has become very real with real people with real problems. That's kind of D&D shining moment. And tabletop RPGs in general, their shining moment when it feels like another life. People kind of get this same sort of thrill from like MMORPGs, from playing games like Animal Crossing or The Sims, when the things you feel when you're doing have weight and impact and feel like real memories,
For sure.
I remember when I was introduced to D&D, I'm like, oh, so it's like a video game, pick your class, pick your race, pick your stats and go, But eventually you start realizing, like, as I've had fantastic DMs in the past, once they start tapping into intangibles like ideals and flaws and how you have to deal with certain situations and your stats can't pull you out of it. You just kind of got to use your voice and and do your best.
It's true.
That's been the biggest change. That's been the biggest change for me in playing D&D, where I pick stats and all that to reach a certain aesthetic, to make a certain character that feels as real as possible. Like, the mechanics are fun. Like, I enjoy combat, I enjoy battles and all that, but that's not really what's important to me anymore, as much as it is just being a cohesive person. And just the ability to have somebody else at the table who's put in so much thought, hours and hours of creative process into another character, and then you get to interact with that. The appeal of just like roleplay in general is fantastic, and D&D is a great medium for that. That is absolutely what has surprised me about this hobby, that it would become such a creative outlet in that respect.
That's very true. Also because it just taps into so many aspects of creation, like both sort of living it, but also preparing it, and sort of having the afterthoughts of it, and sort of the out of game versus in game experience. You know what I mean? Like the sort of in character, out of character. You're constantly switching that as you play D&D or TTRPGs, because you're constantly also asking things about the environment, or asking things about your, I don't know, a class feature that you don't know, or about how many dice should you roll, whatever. And that's not what your character would literally say. So you're also your own person at the table, but then you're constantly sort of fading in and out of your character, which is actually, now that we talk about it, I think that's also one of the things that surprised me most about this, in the best way possible. Like, it's really wonderful to be constantly audience and actor at the same time.
Yes.
Like, I can laugh when you have a character moment, like out of character as we're doing it, and then 1 second as you're saying, oh, hey, Bryn, how do you think about this? Then I'm suddenly Bryn, and we have to keep going in character. That's really one of the most fun ways I've ever played theater, or, played a sort of interactive thing. Because a lot of times you're either audience or you're part of it, or creator or maker of something, right? And this is constantly sort of forcing you to switch out. And I really love that. And I didn't realize that until I actually started doing it.
Yeah. The thing I continue to stress every time I try to explain D&D to people, and this is just a point that I keep coming back to, it's that no story plays out exactly the same, because the people at your table are different every time, right? Like, it's the charm of tabletop RPGs is the unpredictability of it, and being thrown into scenarios that you have not written yourself. Like, this is not something you have control over. You only have control of a very little part, but it very much relies on your collaboration with other people.
Yeah, it's true.
In telling this story. Like, I don't know if we brought this up already, but maybe we have. But the character I played in the first campaign, Mello, I think I've mentioned them once or twice, is kind of this.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I don't know, orphan turned hero / musician sort of deal, and very much separate from like who I am as a person. But there's a little bit of connect, a little bit of disconnect, and D&D is a fantastic way to kind of test mediums and kind of see things through other people's eyes. So trying to figure out how to be an entirely different person, and separate myself from what I would do in the situation versus what this person would do in this situation, is certainly a little bit of a fight. But a very much an enjoyable one. And you also get to experience things that you would never get to experience in real life, like fighting dragons, traveling the world, trying to figure out the logistics of food as you're on the road. There's a lot.
Favorite part of D&D.
Oh, yeah, rations. Love planning. Shopping for anything. Gosh, you know as well as I do.
The best episodes.
You've seen me play before. You know that I love just dressing up the characters in whatever I can think of, because I don't have an unlimited budget in real life.
You make Pinterest board, You're asking what other characters have in their closet. I love it.
Because it's free. It doesn't cost.
It is true. You can literally make it up. It's wonderful.
It's so expensive in real life. I don't know why people don't do this more often. It's true. Like, I literally have a rule, and I've implemented every campaign I've played in. Like, if a character suggests a piece of clothing to any of my characters, they'll wear it. 100%. No questions asked. No exceptions.
Beautiful.
Go for it. That's just part of, like, being fun. Like improv, things like that.
It's true. It's true.
Very much enjoy that.
Can I ask a question, by the way? Well, maybe 2 questions. Was Mello the first character where you tried to divert from your own personality that much? And second question is, was that a conscious choice at all?
So, when I started playing D&D, my first 2 or 3 characters for very, very short campaigns were all human characters, because I didn't know how to be anyone else. I'm like, what is this? What does it feel like to be this this person. So I played like a human monk, human barbarian, human blood hunter, or whatever.
Sure.
And Mello was definitely one of my first departures from just being a normal human being. Mello is a changeling, someone who can shapeshift or change their appearance. So the thing I really wanted to tap into that is just being someone who had the opportunity to change what they looked like at will. So how does that reflect on your psyche? Very often in the campaign, Mello would change their appearance to reflect something they admire or something they really love, to kind of figure out who they are as a person. And when they got really sad, they kind of took on more dark, more stark appearances, reflecting the people who continue to influence them. And eventually, by the end of the campaign, they kind of settle on a singular look and only change the fashion external aspects of that.
Yeah, which is such a beautiful metaphor, by the way. Also for, I don't know why I never realized this before, but if this was your first sort of character, more, or at least one of the first that were more out there, this is such a beautiful way of exploring that, because she's literally able to change that and sort of find out what more out there means for herself, and then also for you in the behind the scenes of it all. That's really great.
And if something like doesn't feel right, I can reflect that in character. Like if it's an out of character thing, an in character thing. And since then, I've been playing just the most ridiculous race class combinations because why not? Why not try out new things?
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Also, I feel like this is something that is important to the character. Towards the second half of the campaign, both of our characters were romantically invested in each other, which is just a whole different field of role playing in
I guess so.
In general, like wrapping your head around like collaborative fantasy storytelling in romance is a lot different from real life, but of course requires the same checks and balances that a lot of people don't realize. Just being able to
for sure,
kind of establish the trust between the person you're RPing with, talking it out with the DM, trying to understand how everybody at the table feels about this sort of thing, and then kind of letting it fly and seeing where it goes.
Yeah. It feels also like a quite intuitive thing also. Like not necessarily like a romance in TTRPG, but just any kind of close relationship RPGing, like if you have a very sort of tight family member or something in your story or part of your character's relationship. Bryn had, for example, very controlling parents that she was constantly worried about, which is a light way to put it. But, her family was very much a burden all the time and in the back of her mind all the time, because she had a lot of trauma with the sort of interactions that she had in her youth. So I guess they weren't around like until, I guess, the final confrontation. So it was more of a one-way relationship in that regard, because they weren't literally there constantly for her to interact or to have to deal with all the time. But if they would have been, if our DM Nick would have chosen to let them show up more or something, or, the story would have eventually ended up that way, then that would also have to need those same check marks and those same talks out of game and also the same talks in game to sort of establish both out of game what you want from that interaction and what you need, more importantly, like how safe that feels, because it is a very, like any acting, basically, like it is a super intimate thing. So I think that's very relevant to what you're saying about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the point I belabor. A lot of people don't understand. Looking in from the outside of to D&D, there is a level of accountability between everybody at the table of like what is okay, what are boundaries. There's something called a session 0 where everybody at the table right before the campaign starts talks about what they're comfortable discussing, what topics are okay to tread upon within the campaign and what aren't. Because D&D campaigns, as they are adventuring and often combat based, there's a lot of violence and difficult topics that come up, and it's very important to outline where you stand on a lot of those things.
Yeah, and it is so free, as a sort of wherever your plot can go. Like there's a lot that can happen because it is such a human game. Like there's a lot of back and forthing. So
of course,
if you want to run a specific type of thing, you can literally do any genre in TTRPG because it's literally whatever you can think of. It's so imaginative. So yeah,
of course. And then of course, when it comes to like the field of like romance, first things first, I recommend for people who ever enter this game, make sure you work with your DM first. Kind of test the waters with them, with characters that are temporary, like NPCs and all that, so that if it doesn't feel right, if it's not working out and it doesn't gel the way you were expecting or working out how you were hoping, the NPC can simply like depart from the campaign, and you don't have to tread on that for too much longer if it becomes something uncomfortable. a lot of people kind of jump right into like PC with PC romances. Then that comes into like interpersonal relationships. And if both of you guys aren't trusting of each other and willing to establish those boundaries, I've constantly had conversations with Mary of, is this okay? Can we talk about this? Is this something we shouldn't do or should do? And like, do you feel comfortable? I feel like that's the biggest thing. But if you don't take those steps to do that, I've heard so many like D&D disaster stories where campaigns are thrown asunder because two people can't manage their emotions out of game. And it's kind of a level of maturity to get there.
And I think that's also the most important thing. I think we touched upon this a little bit in the last episode, the sort of thing that's called character bleed, where it's hard to separate yourself as a, human being, person in the world versus the character that you're playing. And I think if I talk about my own experience, sometimes that is like, I care a lot about that character because I've played her for basically 2 years. And you will probably have the same with Mello, right?
Of course.
Or with any character, that worked out amazing. And I think because I care about if Bryn ends up in a good place, because she feels very real to me the more we play D&D, with that character. Of course, that means that if she feels angry, then I feel less happy because she's not in a good place. It's it's like you care for someone a little bit, which is a bit far maybe, but it feels a little bit like that, like a relative or somebody that you care a lot about, even though they don't exist, but in your mind, right? So I think character bleed is a little bit present in that, but specifically when you talk about interaction with other people, other players, but also the DM, like don't forget that the DM is also playing characters and is also a human being, just like everyone at the table. Very important.
Very important
to note, by the way.
They're a player too. They have to have fun too. Very important.
Yeah, exactly. So you should definitely also have that conversation if you have an NPC relationship, or if you have a romantic relationship or any intimate relationship with an NPC character, because the DM is playing that NPC. Like that's also a human being.
Still a human interaction.
Yeah, like the real world. Yeah, but as long as you sort of are able to separate, and it doesn't even have to be that your feelings are separate, but you're just understanding that those feelings are your own about the character and not the actual feelings of the character. So if Mello would offend Bryn or run away, Bryn would feel upset. But I, as Merle, understand that I am not upset to you, Dante. Bryn is upset about Mello's things, because you're not Mello and I'm not Bryn. And I can be sad for Bryn because Mello ran away, that's fine. But I don't have to be upset about you because you're making character choices and I'm making character choices. That's really a different realm that you're talking about then. And as long as you sort of keep that in mind, then you're really, I think, doing it in a healthy way. And you should talk about that because it is muddy and it is important to understand what you both want what you both want, I guess, out of that interaction, Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember early on when I was playing D&D, like I would get into like heated arguments in character and then leave the table mad, like frustrated, like to the point that it would bother me throughout the day or throughout the week. And I would sit on it for so long. And there's a point where every player has to learn, like, this is a fictional story, like it's a meaningful story. It's a valuable story. But at the end of the day, it is a fictional one. And learning to still be a mature adult at the table and respect the people you're playing with, I guess, is the bottom line. And be understanding in these situations and have these conversations that matter, that are like, hey, this did not resonate well with me. Can we talk about it? Things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Greatly benefit your story in the long run. Just being able to separate yourself from your character to the point that it does not negatively impact your real life, I guess.
Yeah. And
once you hit that balance, the rest of it is beautiful.
I also had those moments a lot. And it also says something about your involvement in the game, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like the fact that you're getting agitated because the conversation was so real, I guess, because it triggered the angry emotion in you, I guess, means that it felt very real. So it was probably very good or intense, at least, roleplay. And then it's up to you to understand that that's the sort of fangirl in you that is very into the storyline. I mean, I'm saying it as a joke a little bit, but the idea of sort of being a fangirl of the story that you're D&Ding and the character that you're playing really also helps me a lot to open it up if I have that. When it's a bit tangled, when it's a bit like, oh, now I'm also feeling this throughout my day in other stuff, like out of D&D, or I'm constantly thinking about this or something. It's really also nice to see it as a sort of fangirl moment where you're like, okay, I'm so involved in this story that I just care about it so much that it keeps me busy all day. And then it gets a bit more lighter or something for me. So that also works. And also, if I'm angry about it, then I can also say, damn, the fact that this story makes me angry, that I care enough about it, that I'm literally feeling angry about this fictional story, means that it's probably a pretty good story. And if that's not true, if that thought feels not true, then it's probably something you should talk it out. And you should say, yo, what happened? Should we like discuss this a little bit maybe? And that's also fine. And then you'll probably also end up in a good spot eventually, if you can talk about it properly.
Yeah, just like your favorite book or favorite movie or favorite TV series. Like, it's okay to be emotionally invested, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
But if you start getting really mad and irritated in real life because of how Zuko was treated in Avatar, then maybe there's something to work on there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
I think to kind of wrap this topic up, because we could go on and on about this, most certainly. Just one of my favorite things about D&D, or about the 3 years that we've had as a campaign, as it just kind of pulled us all really close, you know? Like, yeah,
for sure.
To say that I have like really good friends that I can trust and I've spent hundreds of hours with that live across the world or across the US.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
It's mind-blowing to me. And I'm never not surprised that it's a thing and that can happen. Continuing to thrive, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Specifically with something so intimate and involved and interactive. I think it's so cool that have like such a cool group that, you know, something like a random podcast can just derive from, you know, like this. And, you know, I've never seen you face to face, but it's amazing that it can happen and that we have that sort of, with all of us, that we have this sort of closeness that we have for 3 years now. That's amazing. And that's so cool.
I'm telling you, when that reunion does happen, whenever we do actually meet up in real life, boy, that's going to be a day.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
All right. We do have a little bit more left in our podcast, I believe. I think we do have a prompt to tackle before we close this out.
Yes, a little bit. Damn, we've been going on for so long, but you know, at this point, it doesn't matter. You'll just have a long episode. Fine. Let's go.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yes, I do have a prompt this week because I think it's my turn. Yeah.
Fire away.
And in terms of, you know, dark, mysterious characters.
Okay.
This prompt ties a little bit into that. And rather than a city, since we've been talking about characters so much, I thought it would be nice if you build me a character today. And I have the following prompt for you. I want you to build me a character that at the end of the line, end of the story, however you want to fill it in, mysteriously disappears.
Gosh. Okay. I have ideas.
Okay. Interesting.
But I also have to follow your directions, the 13 rules that you put in the front. So I can't start with test. I can't start with appearances. Give me a second.
You can definitely do whatever you want. I don't think Lim Yal will be judging you from across the internet.
Definitely, we're going to get an angry email from Lim Yal. I can't believe you featured me in your podcast and didn't even follow my instructions.
How dare you? Yeah.
Okay.
No pressure.
Sure. I got it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's work through this. This character doesn't carry around an ID. That would kind of be too obvious. They make their way through a cityscape, entranced by their surroundings as it is entirely foreign to them. They do have a satchel by their side, leather made with a couple of important belongings within it, trinkets that continue to remind them of home. As they're walking, they pull one out, kind of spin it, and they kind of roll it between their fingers, memorizing the feel of it before putting it back. There's somebody they have to meet today, a very important meeting with a very important discussion. They tie their hair back, kind of a long brown ponytail, just making sure that they look proper and presentable and don't kind of alarm the person they're about to approach. And they slip through a set of glass doors. They make their way up a staircase. This is clearly some sort of medical building. The walls are painted white, with lots of panes of glass separating the front scenario, the front desk from the actual patient rooms. And they slip very quietly. They have kind of memorized the path they could take to avoid having to sign in or show any sort of identification. Eventually, they find their way to the 5th floor, room 532. They peer in and see a person sitting on their bed, laying down. They have the familiar blips of a heart rate in the background. There's a deep breath taken by the character. They kind of straighten out their school uniform. They again reach into their bag, feel a couple of things, making sure they are able to hold on for a little bit longer, and they step into the room. They meet the eyes of this girl, probably about in her late 20s, meets the eyes of her mother, laying on the hospital bed. There's a moment where their eyes connect and they see a familiarity. There's something there that is impressively familiar, but very different. And the girl reaches into her bag, pulls out a couple of mementos, a picture of her partner, of another photo of her own child, picture of herself in a graduation uniform. She looks to her mom and says, "Just wanted to let you know, you don't have to worry about me. It turned out all right." The mom looks to her, confused, and a few tears come down as the face becomes ever so familiar. She cries, and there's a small embrace. They hold each other. In the ridiculousness of the scenario, they find peace in each other's presence. And as the mom goes back to sleep and continues her, unfortunately, ending recovery, the girl walks out, looks down the hallway, sees a young girl with a long black ponytail, 5 years old, playing with a couple toys. And she smiles, walks away, and disappears into thin air. And that's the prompt.
Oh my God. Oh no. Oh shit, I hate that I gave you this prompt. Now I want to know what happens, but it's the point that I don't know. Oh God, that was gorgeous.
Cool.
I was just eating a grape as you started describing it. I was like, this is awful and beautiful. Oh my God. That was dope. Whoa. Okay.
Thanks.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I thought you were going like sort of film noir kind of, but it ended up, oh yeah, that was a ride. I mean, that was amazing. Dang. I love that we do these sort of one-way prompts now, because then I get to just sort of listen and be in awe of your fancy storytelling skills all the time. It's pretty cool. I love it.
That was a fun one.
Fuck, I'm so invested now. Can you like write this or something? No. Okay. There's more to do.
If you want a story like this, just watch The Girl That Leapt Through Time. It's like one of my favorite movies like ever. I picked it up because it reminded me of Studio Ghibli movies, just in aesthetic.
Okay.
But it's not made by them particularly, but it's easily like top 5 movies I've ever watched. Very, very fond of it.
Oh, cool. Is it animation then?
Yes, it is animation.
Ooh, me like some good animation. I will definitely watch that now. I mean, dang, that was a good sell. Talking about marketing. Hello.
I didn't realize how much the story was influenced by it until I started saying it. But
that's always how it goes, though, right? If you have to do something from like top of your mind.
Yeah. Like just pull from something I know. Yeah.
But I love it. Great. Perfect ending.
Fantastic conversation today. Happy 3 years and happy 10 episodes, Merla.
You too, Dante.
Very
Congrats
fun
on us. This is great.
Congrats on us. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can say that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. To many more stories to come, of course, whether it be in D&D or in this wonderful podcast. All right. If you're still listening, we're rapidly approaching the 1.5 hour mark, so let's not get there. Yeah. You clearly are probably doing laundry or driving your car and have left this on. So to you, and you specifically, thank you. Hope you finish whatever you're working on. And hope you, from this podcast, get a little bit more interested in world building, storytelling, something in between. And as you do, always remember, your rivers are wrong.
Yeah, they're pretty wrong. Yep.
Have a great one.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Your Rivers Are Wrong. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes that you'd like to hear us cover, feel free to contact us at yourriversarewrong@gmail.com. Our intro and outro music is written by Maarten Schellekens. Thanks for that. And again, thank you so much for listening. We hope to see you at the next one.